head to the NFC West. And surprisingly, the seller of the division, the San Francisco 49ers. So starting things off with Mykel Williams, followed by Alfred Collins, Nick Martin, so on and so forth. Kelcey, were they digging for gold or did they only find coal?
They got a little bit of gold, a little bit of cold, a little bit of meh. So it's
Hmm.
going to be a B for me for the 49ers. I think this is just an efficient draft for the Niners. Not a lot
They
to it.
did what they needed. They did what they needed to do in addressing the defensive line. I just didn't love the players they chose for it. Mykel Williams, they have a good coaching staff, that's for sure. So they get the most out of him. This is going to be outstanding. In like 3 or 4 months into the season, like, oh, that's
Yeah.
defensive player of the year caliber, Mykel Williams. If they don't, well, that's going to be a little disappointing. But they hit the needs they needed to. They wasn't necessarily always the players I would take in those spots. So I'm going to give them a C. They were fine. They did what they needed to. Mykel Williams is not a bad pick. I think he was more in the 20s is where I would have thought he would go, maybe somewhere in that area. But the way the 49ers defensive line coaches and when you have Nick Bosa over there, it always kind of finds a way to work out. And Alfred Collins, you just need to rebuild that defensive line. I do wish there was an offensive tackle in here somewhere. That's one thing I really wish they had added to that rotation. But from San Francisco, we'll head to the Arizona Cardinals, and they kind of shook things up out of the gate, taking Walter Nolen, followed by Will Johnson and crew. Kelcey, how do we feel about the Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah. First of all, love the first two picks. Will Johnson might be the best valued pick in this entire draft if he is healthy and can get on the field. However, after those two guys, it's a lot of, oh, you got that guy? Really? Um, and so it could have fallen to a C, but I'm just going to keep a flat B because I think the top two picks were really, really good. And then after that, it was just like, really? So give me a B.
There's one thing that's very clear in this one. It's that Jonathan Gannon had his imprint on this draft by the fact that they were all defensive except for Hayden Connor at guard. They definitely locked in on the defense side of the ball. Walter Nolen, Will Johnson, Cody Simon, and Denzel Burke are all awesome picks. I love them. Jordan Burch is a really good pick there as well. I'm going to give them a high B. It's going to be avoiding an A because there's still offensive line issues, receiver issues. There's in a very deep running back class. They didn't grab one of them. James Conner is great, but he's not getting younger. I think they could have used a running back somewhere in here as well. There's plenty of options. Yeah. You could have kept Cam Scatterbo in the same zip code, arguably. So I think there were some misses. There were some misses there. There was some good. I love those first couple of picks for sure, just like everybody else. But from the Arizona Cardinals, we'll move right on over to the Seattle Seahawks, who I'm going to say that was an interesting draft. I love Gray Zabel. And then, of course, they got Nick Emenwari, Elijah Arroyo, Jalen Milroe, Riley Mills, so on and so forth. Kelcey, I like Gray Zabel. You like Gray Zabel. But is that enough to give them an
A? He wasn't enough to give him an A, but he's not the only guy that they drafted,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the important thing. Nick Emenwari, I think, is a outstanding pick for Seattle. I think he was absolutely what they want to do. And I think Elijah Arroyo is going to be emphatic in that offense as well. And I think Jalen Milroe, hear me out on this one, but I think this is the perfect place for Jalen Milroe to end up in Seattle. I think this is his opportunity to succeed going forward. Obviously, he probably doesn't have to start this year. Could maybe take this year off and then come in next year, 2 years later. Depends on what happens this year, obviously. But I think he's a long-term play in Seattle, and I think he's going to be really, really good in Seattle once he gets to polish some of that off. And then look at this. There's like another 14 guys on this list. It's like I think they did everything they needed to do to get more depth in their team that didn't have a lot of it. And they did so through the draft instead of actually going out and trying to get free agents and paying all that extra money. So for all that, I'm going to give them an A.
An A for the Seahawks. I like it. And you got 2 first-round picks out of the gate, like we talked about some other guys was Zabel and Emenwari. Elijah Arroyo is a very good value pick there. Jalen Milroe, I'm intrigued by it. I would have liked it better if they had Geno Smith. I'm not going to lie. If Geno was still there, I'd feel more comfortable about it. We'll see what Sam Darnold is able to bring some of that Minnesota magic to Seattle. There's a big curiosity factor there. And if this is supposed to be the Russell Wilson thing where they sign a veteran, then the rookie takes his job, I don't think that's going to happen here. Unless you're going to run a lot of wishbone with him, Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker, all behind Gray Zabel, then JSN and Cooper Kupp are just extended offensive linemen. I don't know. When you have Zabel and Emenwari, though, that is a mid to high B. I'm going to give them a mid to high B. They did a really, really good job. And if Sam Darnold is 85% of what he was in Minnesota, this is another 10-win team. So I
know Sam Darnold will not be Matt Flynn. I at least know that much.
He's shown plenty enough of that. But we'll now head to the AFC West champion, Los Angeles Rams, trading out of the first round to load up on picks next year. Maybe they're in the quarterback hunt for next year. Terrence Ferguson, Josiah Stewart, Jarquez Hunter, Ty Hamilton, Chris Paul Jr., Kanata Mumfield, Kelcey. There, your boy Chris Paul's on there. Your boy Jarquez Hunter's on there. Does that automatically make him an A?
No, but it was Jarquez alone was enough for me to be like, hey, look at that. But I think Terrence Ferguson is an underrated tight end in this draft. I think he is a really good tight end that somebody's going to be very happy with. And I think when you look at the Rams, the one thing that you really hope for in that team was to have a tight end that can perform week in and week out. Their current tight end room, you don't know who's going to play week in and week out, and that's a problem. So hopefully Terrence Ferguson can come in and be that guy. I think for the second pick being their first pick, I think that works out pretty well for him. Josiah Stewart, I think, was a really good pick as well. Jarquez, obviously, I'm a big fan of. Ty Hamilton, meh. Chris Paul Jr., definitely don't hate it, that's for sure. And yeah, I think overall this is just going to be a B for me.
That's a fair rating for him. I think Jarquez Hunter and Chris Paul were very good value picks for you. Got them. I think Jarquez Hunter's going to be really good. Granted, they have enough running backs there, but you just brought Blake Corum in last year. Kyron Williams is still young. So much so that you had him playing punt returner at points last year. For all that, though, I'm going to give him a C. They're in a win now mode, basically, when you re-sign Matthew Stafford like that. And I'm curious, really. I'm really curious how these all translate into, all right, we're going to go on our Super Bowl run next year. Maybe they weren't worried about the draft like that. Maybe that's what they felt free agency was for. But I would have liked a little bit more pizzazz as far as going on that Super Bowl, a little bit more oomph out of the gate. Still a very good draft. They still need a linebacker. They ignore linebackers every year.